welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rachel, the owner of the Eclectic Cottage in Spokane, Washington. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I know I did. I got to see both my kids and my grandkids, so that was fun. Last week was a little bit hectic around here though, because we had frozen hot water pipes and leaky ceiling in the kitchen. So between those two things and trying to get them all figured out and keep up with keeping buckets under the leaky ceiling, I only got to 2 projects for you this week. So they did both turn out really cute though. I'm really excited for them. I hope you like them too. And so today is a thrift flip video. And for those of you who have never been here before, Tuesdays I normally will give you some sort of a flip video, whether it be a trash to treasure, a thrift flip, a furniture flip, or a DIY. And then Thursdays are normally my thrift hauls, where I will show you the cool stuff that my husband and I got on our most recent junk run. Now there are exceptions to those rules, obviously. This week I did not get a chance to do a junk run because it was the day after Christmas and I still had family at the house. And so I think you're gonna get a little bit of a peek of my greenhouse as I start the process of getting that cleaned out and ready, rather than a thrift haul. So we'll see. I think that's what I'm going to do tonight for you though. But anyway, this week's video, I did 2 projects. I did a little bench, a dining bench, and a really cute little mail sorter, and I think they both turned out great, and I hope you really like them. And if you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to my channel and hit the little notification bell, and that will tell you when I do upload new videos. And if you like this video, please make sure and give it a thumbs up at the end. So without further ado, here are those 2 projects. For my first project, I found what I figured out was a mail sorter at the thrift store, and I looked this up online using Google Lens, and apparently it was made by Bombay Company, and it's really a nice piece. It's made of wood, it's super heavy, just a really quality little desktop mail sorter. It had a hanger on the back, and I ended up at the very end replacing the hangers so that you could hang it on the wall. And I'm starting with just giving it a good wash. I used Krud Kutter to start, and then I'm finishing that up with my mister bottle and some clean water, just to make sure that none of that Krud Kutter residue gets left on the piece before I start painting. So once it's all clean, I decided to paint it black using Little Black Dress by DIY. Now, I love DIY paint. It's highly pigmented, and honestly, for the most part, I could have gotten away with just doing 1 coat of paint on this piece. However, my paint is getting a little old. It's getting towards the bottom of the can, so there are little chunks in there. And I wanted to make sure when I was done that it was smooth. So I knew I was going to go over it with 220 sandpaper at the end. So I went ahead and painted the entire piece twice. So I gave it 2 even coats of Little Black Dress to get it ready for sanding. Now the drawer, I decided I was going to use decoupage paper on. So as you know, if you watch any of my other videos, decoupage paper looks best on a white background. So this is just me starting the process by giving the front of the drawer 1 coat of white Swan by DIY. And then here I go with the sandpaper, just trying to make sure and knock any chunks off so that the paint is nice and smooth when I'm done. Just trying to get in all the nooks and crannies. At this point, I'm not really trying to distress it. I'm more worried about just making sure the paint is smooth. Boy, did that lazy Susan help that process. And then to clean up the dust, I used my vacuum cleaner just because I didn't want to wash too much of the paint off when I was trying to clean it. So next step is taking a damp cloth, actually this is a shop towel, and starting the distressing process. So I'm kind of wiping the dust off carefully as I go, and then using that damp shop towel to rub on all the detailed areas and all the little crevices and nooks and crannies to make that wood shine through that black paint. So basically, you're just taking the paint off anywhere that you want to see the wood. And once that process is done and I'm happy with how it looks, it's time to seal it. Now, DIY paint can be reactivated with water, so you always want to make sure and seal over your paint. Here I'm using Big Top, mainly because if this gets a lot of use, I wanted it to have a really nice, kind of a hard shell type finish, and Big Top is great for that. So I'm just using it and giving it one nice even coat all over where I've painted. Now Big Top goes on a little milky, but it dries clear, and it gives you just a beautiful, a little bit of a sheen, but just a nice finish. So there it is, all done with the Big Top. Now it's time to finish up the drawer. So I'm putting my second coat of white Swan on here. I ended up doing what you'd call 2.5 coats of paint. I gave it 2 coats and then just went over the corners and a couple areas where the dark was still showing through a little bit. And here is the paper I'm using. It's called Midnight Amber. It's by Redesign by Prima. It's a beautiful paper. So first step is to measure my drawer. Now this drawer had little lips that go all the way around it, so I couldn't just sand off any excess, so I had to be really meticulous as to how I measured and made sure that the piece of paper I was cutting was the right size. So I'm doing that with my cutter, just kind of laying it down, making sure I don't have any wrinkles or bubbles in the paper before I cut it. So cut it to width and then cut it to length. Just being really careful to make sure it's laying down flat and nice and straight. And then cut. And then there's my piece of paper. And then I did iron it. It had a little bit of a crinkle crease in it. So I took my iron without any steam, just kind of a medium heat, and went over it a few times to get that crease out. So the next step is putting down the decoupage paper, and I'm using liquid patina by DIY, kind of putting a nice thick coat in that corner. And what I'm going to do is lay that corner down first, just so that I can get the paper started and make sure it's going to go down nice and straight. And once I'm happy with it and get it put down in that corner, I can peel back the rest of it and then start to put down the liquid patina across the rest of the piece and lay the paper down as I go. This avoids crinkles and wrinkles in your paper. So now I'm just kind of smoothing it, making sure that all the edges are nicely seated, the corners are nicely seated, everything is laying down where it needs to be. Kind of running my finger around the edge, making sure everything's nice and stuck into the liquid patina. And then I'll go back over it a second time with a coat of liquid patina. And I know it looks really milky, but I promise you it dries clear. And I do, since this decoupage paper is pretty thick, I lay a pretty good coat of the liquid patina on it. I just want to make sure it all kind of looks milky before I throw my brush down. So there you go. All the corners and everything. And the next step is the hardware. And here I'm using Pennies from Heaven. It's a liquid patina by DIY. And I love this stuff. It's great. It's a paint. I mean, you can paint it on. It's not super thick, so it just kind of glazes the piece with a really, really pretty copper patina. It just makes it look shiny and pretty, and it was the perfect color, I thought, for this paper. So here I am putting the hardware back onto the front of the drawer. This was a little bit of a process because that drawer is pretty shallow, so trying to get my screwdriver in there was interesting. And get it all screwed down. And there's the drawer, all dry and finished. And then just put it in the piece and it's done. For project 2, I've had this bench in my kitchen for a while now, and honestly, it's really been in the way. I keep knocking my shins into the darn thing. So I was ready to get it done and out of there. So I found it on Marketplace. I bought it with a dining room table that I wanted the pedestal of, and this bench just happened to come with it. So like I said, it's been just kind of kicking around in my kitchen for a while. So first step is cleaning, and I'm using my Krud Kutter first to get any really gucky stuff off of it. And then once that's done, I go over it with my Mister bottle and some clean water just to make sure there isn't any residue left from the Krud Kutter. So once the piece is all clean and dry, I begin painting, and I am using White Swan by DIY. It's one of my favorite colors, and DIY paint is highly pigmented. So even though I'm going over a pretty dark color, I only had to use 2, and I would call it a half coats of paint. So basically 2 coats all over the piece, and 1 coat where I just went in and got any places where the blue paint was kind of shining through a little bit. So here I am putting that second coat of paint on, just making sure to get all the little nooks and crannies and give it a nice good coat of paint. And you can see I've got my Mister bottle there in my hand. Water really helps when you're going over a piece like this to move that paint. So if it starts getting sticky, feel free to use your Mister bottle, spray that paint, and it'll move around a lot easier for you. So the next step is distressing. So I'm just doing the simple wet distress technique where I've got my wet paper towel and I'm going over all of the high points where I think I would want to see that blue paint kind of shine through. And I went ahead and finished the top, even though I'm planning on reupholstering it, just in case down the road somebody decides they want to take that upholstery off, the whole piece will be finished the same. And the last step on this is to wax it, and I'm using DIY clear wax. And waxing is a great way to finish a piece. I love it, and it's a really simple process. You just rub the wax on, kind of scrub it on with your wax brush. Make sure you get all the areas, work in small sections, and then wipe back the excess with a shop rag or a cheesecloth or some kind of an old t-shirt, just to get the excess wax off. So here I'm taking care of the top of it, nice long strokes, and then taking my shop towel and wiping the excess back off. And here it is done. And like I said, I could have stopped at this point, but I really did want to upholster this thing. I loved this fabric. It went really well with the blue color that was underneath the white paint. And here I am measuring so that I can cut the foam that I'm going to use on the bench. Now it came with a foam cover, so I actually cut the foam out of the fabric that it was in and used that as well. So here I am. I marked out where I needed my foam to be cut, and I'm just using my upholstery scissors to carefully cut along, trying to not leave a bunch of weird little edges on the foam. And so the next step is cutting out my fabric. So I got that all cut out. And then I laid my layers of foam down, put the bench on it upside down, and now I am stapling my fabric. So basically I'm just kind of pulling that fabric nice and tight all along the edge and stapling it. I went through and I did 2 staples on each side first, just to make sure that it was nice and tight on each side. And then the key is just making sure that it's nice and even as you pull it all the way around. So down each side. And then I did the end, and then the corners. And then I flipped it and finished that side and got that end and both of those corners. And once I'm done with that, I'm taking my scissors and just cutting off the little tails that kind of stick up where I gathered the fabric on the corners. This one I had to actually cut some of the fabric off because it's got that kind of tatty edge to it. So I cut that off as evenly as I could. And then I went around and just stapled the fabric down across the boards that ran across the back, just to make sure it had a nice finish to it. I didn't want any of that hanging down. And here's the piece finished. So what did you guys think of today's video and the 2 projects I completed for you? I'm a little curious to know if you would have upholstered the bench or if you would have just left it alone as a wood bench. So in the comments below, let me know what your thoughts are and if you would have put fabric on it or not. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do like content like this, please remember to subscribe to my channel and then hit the little notification bell, and that will tell you when I do upload new content. And if you did like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And stay tuned for Thursday. I think I mentioned at the beginning that I didn't have time to do a junk run this week. So I'm pretty sure tonight I'm going to take you along as I first try and make myself a path through the snow out to my greenhouse, and then just kind of show you a little bit of my greenhouse and some of the things that I have out there and the process of cleaning it, because it's a disaster area right now. I don't think I've been out there since I divided all my dahlia tubers, and so there's just stuff everywhere. So I'm gonna take you along as I get it cleaned and organized and ready for seed starting season, which is right around the corner, unbelievably. Anyway, I hope you'll check back with me then, and I will see you Thursday, and have a great day. Bye.